Snenhlanhla Masilela, IOL.co.za. Punishment for deadbeats, parents defaulting on child maintenance to be blacklisted. Now, I read this article on the back of a conversation I had with DJ Spoo on the Hustler's Corner, where he was asking me about a video I made speaking about becoming a deadbeat father, walking away from 3 of my kids, me trying to unpack and explain what I meant in that video, emphasizing the fights that I'd embarked on, specifically for my one son, Zulu, for 11 years, and then as of recently for a year now, for my son and daughter, Ushara no Culture. But also trying to highlight that I will continue supporting as much as possible my other children, Nkunzi, Afrika, Luna, and Zuri. But how importantly, I did not want to carry on enabling bad behavior by mothers who refuse access to children. Meanwhile, as a father, you keep maintaining. And DJ Spoo said there's this law that's coming into play where parents who are deadbeats, who are not providing, are going to get punished in terms of their finances, in terms of getting blacklisted, having assets that are seized, etc. So I'm reading this article on the back of that. Again, written by Snenhlanhla Masilela on IOL.co.za. To ensure that parents comply with court orders directing them to pay child maintenance, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, together with Social Justice Foundation, the SJF, have come up with stringent measures which will force parents to support their children. On Friday, last Friday, the two organizations, alongside the Consumer Profile Bureau, signed a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, which aimed at blacklisting parents who default on child maintenance. While the initiative is a relief for parents who have been struggling with child maintenance, it will take time before it's fully operational, as the government must first establish a supportive system for the process. I think that's very important to emphasize. That it will take time before it's fully operational. It's been tabled now. It is something that they're trying to do, but it has not been fully made into law, and it has not been fully operationally devised. So for people that are planning to continue defaulting, you might have a bit of relief before this kicks in. As part of the project, the Department of Justice plans to establish a system that will enable the transfer of information regarding individuals who are behind on child maintenance payments. Their data will then be sent to a designated credit bureau, which will then share it with all other credit bureaus and credit providers. What that means is that if you're defaulting, just like you'll default on your phone account, on your furniture account, on your clothing account, if you're defaulting on your bond, on your car payments, it will take that same information that you have defaulted, and it will send that information to the credit bureaus to be like, this guy or this lady is also not paying. Never mind that they're not paying their car, their house, etc. They're also not paying a court-ordered maintenance for their child or for their children. Once a name is flagged by the credit bureau and added to a blacklist, it will be difficult for the person to get loans on houses, cars, open a store account, or even apply for a personal loan. Speaking during an interview with ENCA, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Uthembi Smelane, said taking care of children was a constitutional mandate. She said it was parents' obligation to financially maintain their children until they are no longer financially dependent on them. In inverted commas, children are vulnerable, and both parents carry a responsibility of taking care and raising their children. In our view, the raising is beyond access to money. We have to try and fix the system in its entirety, she said. Smelane said this move was made to support the court process, which issues child maintenance orders, but oftentimes those orders are not adhered to. Meanwhile, SJF Executive Director Annika Gravenstein said the purpose of the project was to close the gap between maintenance court, service providers, and the credit industry. In inverted commas, by building this bridge, we are reshaping how families interact with the legal system, making it accessible and fair. IOL.co.za. I had a big debate with a close friend of mine, Tulani Damboza, on one of our WhatsApp groups, discussing this, because the first comment I said to him or to the group was, I feel this is going to punish a lot of men. And we ended up having a back and forth around, before they get punished, should we not be focusing on what led to the guy defaulting, and why would you say that it's going to disadvantage men? The reality is most of these maintenance orders are served on men. It's one of those laws where you're not explicitly saying we will punish men or we will punish black people or we will punish white people, but the substance of this law or this amendment speaks to punishing men, and in this case, fathers. Now, in the back and forth, and some of the other guys in the group joined in and gave their views. In the talk and in the debate and the discussion, some of the things I was saying was, or some of the things that came out, rather, let me put it this way, was for this to be in effect, number one, there needs to be a maintenance order. So this is not going to apply just if a father or a mother, in some instance, is not providing for the child. There needs to be a maintenance order granted by the court, which means mom or dad, or in some instances, it could be grandparents that are living with the child, or a stepmom, father, a guardian. They can go to court, to the maintenance court, and go and apply for maintenance, for a maintenance order. That requires you to go there. That requires the party that's being brought in to bring their pay slip, if they have a pay slip, if they have a business, their financial statements, their bank statements, etc., to be assessed for affordability. The other important thing that gets asked there is the person that is living with the child, are you contributing to the child or are you relying on the other person? And if it happens that the other person is saying, look, I'm happy to maintain, but this other parent is not maintaining or must also maintain, they will then review all of that, and you may find that the maintenance order will not only be served on the parent not living with the child, but may be served on both of you, and then there are court orders for both of you, very importantly. And it has to do with affordability, which I have a big issue with, but I'll explain why. It has to do with affordability. So what that means is if a guy is earning 30,000 Rand a month and he's sending 10,000 Rand and you feel it's not enough, you may take him to the maintenance court, and you may find that after assessment, they realize that this 10,000 is actually too much. This guy should actually be sending 6,000 Rand a month, and may end up disadvantaging you who actually took this person to the maintenance court. The reason I don't like the argument of affordability, something I said recently on my Twitter, I think I also said it in some of the videos. The idea that the richer the parent, the more money they must send, I feel is wrong, and I feel is unconstitutional. A child has rights under the Bill of Human Rights. A child has rights. There's the Children's Act, which is the custodian of children's rights and acts in the best interest of the child. And the Children's Act is the guiding legislation whenever you go to a children's court, a family court, where it's a matter involving a child. Now, according to children's rights, children are entitled to certain needs. Now, needs we kind of know from Maslow's hierarchy. It is food, it is shelter, it is clothing. Some could argue love and care, and then access to education, some type of education and skills, so that at some point they can take care of themselves. Of course, there's security and safety as well. Now, nowhere in those rights does it say a child's need is whatever the parent can afford, or the richer the parent, the greater the child's needs. I'm saying this because just because I'm earning 100,000 Rand a month does not necessarily mean it should be legislated that I should send more money for my child than a parent who's earning 20,000 Rand a month, because those children have the same needs. But what happens in the courts is that they look at things like lifestyle. This applies to spousal maintenance as well, what some people may know as alimony. I was married to a woman, we got divorced, I earn a lot of money, and now to maintain her lifestyle, I must keep on sending her 30,000 Rand a month. Not her needs. Not that she just needs shelter, she needs food. Put them to as my wife. And I feel that's wrong, and that must be changed. Similarly, with the Children's Act, I feel like the base for things like maintenance should not necessarily be the affordability of the parent, but the needs of the child. And this becomes very important with moms and dads who don't have jobs. Because according to the South African government, they feel that the child grant, I think it could be 570 Rand a month, they feel that that is sufficient. No one is taking government to court to say, no, but you guys collect this much in tax, so we're taking you to court to say our children deserve 5,000 Rand a month in the child grant. They feel 570 is enough, but you may find that a father or a mother who's willing to send the same 570, they'll say, no, this is too little. Now, does this mean the needs of a poor child are less than the needs of a child of rich parents? No, their needs are the same: food, shelter, etc. Government can argue that outside of the 570, they can offer the parents, if they don't have money, if they don't have an income, an RTP house, so that the parents have a home, the child has a home free from government. They can offer them relief in terms of electricity because ESCOM allows indigents, people that don't have much money, they give them some level of free electricity per month. They will argue that, look, healthcare. So there's 90% of our population relies on public healthcare. Therefore, the parents can take their children to government hospitals, to government clinics for free. And then they could argue that there's no fee schools. The schools are free. The parents send their children. The children get to study for free. The children, most of the time, get to eat for free. But why cannot this need and this welfare be afforded to someone who's earning 10,000 Rand? Mostly the missing middle, people that are earning 30,000. It should be that that is also available for them, unless if they would like more for their child. But once you're mandating a law that you're arguing is constitutionally mandated, why does it apply to people that are making money, but not to people who are poor, who don't make money? The needs should be the same. And it should then be up to the parent to say, I would like to afford more for my child. I would like my child to go to an X Model C school. I would like for my child to go to a private school. I would like for my child to be on medical aid. I would like for my child to wear fancy clothing, etc. That should be up to the desire of the parent, and it should not be forced by the law beyond the needs of the child. If the mom, if the dad are stingy, they're these assholes that decide I make 500,000 Rand a month, but I'm only going to send 2,000 Rand for my child. The law should not force that parent to send more just because he earns more. That cannot be constitutional. It should be my right to say, of my 500,000, look, I want to splurge, I want to buy an expensive car, I want to travel around the world. I feel my child's needs are covered with 2,000 Rand, and it should be not be that a court orders that I must send 20,000 Rand as an example. That is not speaking to the needs of a child versus the wants of maybe the child, and more especially the wants of the parent living with the child, in most cases being the mother. Well, this guy earns 500,000. I don't know why my child has to go to such a cheap school. This guy earns 500,000. I don't know why my child has to dress at Pep. This guy's making 100,000 Rand a month. He can't even put his child on medical aid. It cannot be that you force someone to put a child under a certain financial plan just because the one parent is earning a lot. In a situation where both parents are married, living together, both of them are earning, the mom is earning 200,000, the dad is earning 100,000, those same parents can still decide themselves without the courts, without violating the Children's Act. They can decide, even though we're making 300,000 as a family unit, our child is still going to live on 2,000 Rand a month. They will go to a cheap school. We're not going to put them on medical aid. We'll take them to a government clinic, a government hospital. We'll buy them clothing at Pep. They can make that decision together as a unit and say, we feel this is what is in the best interest of our child, and it does not violate the child's rights. But once all of a sudden they split and the one parent is somewhere else, or both parents are away and the children are living maybe with grandparents, all of a sudden the courts come in and they say, we want to see how much you earn, and we want whatever we deem affordability to be the amount that we put for the child and not necessarily the needs. And this is something that I feel fundamentally has to change. Number two, now let me start here. Blacklisting does not exist in South Africa. I know we use that term, it's been used for many years, and many people are like, I'm being blacklisted. Blacklisting doesn't exist. In the way our credit industry works, you get a credit profile once you start becoming credit active. If you've never opened a clothing account, a cell phone account, if you don't have a credit card, if you don't have a car installment, that's all these things, you do not have a credit profile at the bureaus, the biggest ones being TransUnion and Experian. To do that, to kick that off, you need to have an open account. Normally the clothing accounts give you quick, sometimes a cell phone account. They may ask for a pay slip, they may ask for bank statements, and then you start building a credit profile. What that credit profile does is it tracks your repayment behavior. So you have a Vodacom MTN account, and every month you're paying 200 Rand, 1,000 Rand, whatever. And the credit and this information by the credit providers who need to be registered is being sent to the credit bureaus to and say, hey, Upenel Mlojwa every month is paying on time, or last month he paid 7 days late, or the month before that he paid 30 days late. And it tracks. Now, the more credit you get, the better. So it tracks that, number one. Number two, what it does is it assigns a score once you start becoming credit active. You get a base score, and then as you repay well, your score improves. It also holds that as you get bigger credit arrangements, you get a personal loan of 50,000, you get a credit card for 20,000, you can qualify for a vehicle loan. All of a sudden, you can get a bond, you can get a house, a mortgage. It assigns a higher score the more credit you get while you're paying well. If you start defaulting on some of your items and you don't pay well, it starts minusing your score. And what happens at credit providers is they have what's called a scorecard, which then rates you according to fields they pull from the credit bureau to see, does this person a certain threshold? If you think of it from a high school going to university perspective, Konama M score and these things, where a university says to be able to get into engineering, law, accounting, medicine, we need a minimum score. So they'll look at your marks, etc., and then they'll apply a score to that, and then you will qualify or not. So the credit bureaus operate like that with service providers. The service provider will have a credit score, and they'll say, we need a minimum score of this to make sure that we can give you a cell phone. We can give you clothing on account. We can give you a vehicle loan, as an example. And if your credit score doesn't look good, then unfortunately they reject you on that basis because you haven't been paying well. That's what's called blacklisting, because everywhere you go, payday loans, you go to the banks, you go to a furniture store, you go to a cell phone network provider, all of them are declining you because you are not reaching a minimum threshold. And we call that being blacklisted. But there is no list out there that says because you're not paying, don't give this person money. What that could do is it could say you can't qualify for 100,000, but you can qualify for 30,000. We can't give you a cell phone for 2,000 Rand a month, but we can't give you a cell phone for 200 Rand a month based on your score at times and also based on your affordability. But the idea that there's some list somewhere where don't give this person money at all, there is no such list. What happens is your score gets impacted, and then your score is what rejects, declines you when you're applying for credit. Now, what they're trying to do is just like all the other service providers I've spoken about, they want to take the maintenance orders that have been mandated by the court to say, send these to the credit bureaus and maybe send these to the banks, and then make sure that someone is tracking this behavior, just like repayments anywhere else. Now, it could be that you load that, hey, I will be sending money into this bank account at FNB, at ABSA, at Capitec from my account, and maybe this is the reference I'm going to be using. And the banks are going to pick this up. I don't know how. This is why they said it's going to delay, because they still need to build the processes, and it's probably going to take a while to get them right, if at all. We have to think of the POPI Act, which has to do with privacy. We need to do with consent. If people are going to consent for their information to be sent like that, in that way, and to have that type of exposure to their finances, if they can fight it and say maybe it's even unconstitutional to do this to parents that are not providing. They will take this, and then if for whatever reason you didn't send money into your child's account, into the mother's account, into the grandparent's account, it's going to flag, and then it's going to send that to the credit bureaus to say, Parental did not send money for his child this month. Parental paid 7 days late, 15 days late. And then like any other credit transaction, it's going to then flag, and then it's going to affect your credit profile so that your score is lowered, so that whatever they call blacklisting, now all of a sudden you cannot gain access to some of these credit products. Now, besides the fact that it's majority going to affect men, the other problem is this. We speak of the Children's Act and we speak about doing what's in the best interest of the child. If you are going to hammer a parent to have a bad credit profile and not be able to access credit, do you feel that that puts the child at an advantage? And if the answer is no, then why are you doing it? Well, he's not providing. I understand. He needs to be punished. He needs to be followed up. I fully hear you. I'm asking that now that you've punished this parent, a father, and he can't get a car, he can't buy a house, he can't get a personal loan, do you think that this serves the child? The answer is no. The answer is, look, we're hoping that it will not get to that, so that the father or the other parent provides. We're threatening them more than anything to try and get them to do good behavior. It's, you will not go to jail if you do the right thing. And I'm like, but if the person goes to jail, does it help the child? If a father gets put in jail, if a mother gets put in jail, does it help the child? The answer is no. So doing that is not necessarily in the best interest of the child. However, the threat may be. Number two, when you don't allow people to access credit. Do you feel this could have a negative impact on the child? Dad wants to go and get a car. He can't now because he paid his maintenance late. He underpaid, as we heard about a recent case where a man was actually arrested because the maintenance order said 60,000 Rand a month for his kids. He was only sending 22,000 Rand. He was arrested. Now that arrest, that not having access to credit, where I could buy a car, I could buy a house, how does this affect the child? Now the child cannot be picked up by the father in the car because he couldn't get a car. Now the father cannot bring the child to the house because they couldn't get a house. And what's sad is that in many job applications, they look at your credit profile. Now the father who was struggling, making ends meet, given a maintenance order of 2,000 Rand a month from hustling. His hustles didn't go well this month. He didn't make as much money as he wanted. The contract was cancelled. His invoices were not paid in time. Government and the tenders didn't pay in time, etc. He's now defaulted for 3 months and he's tried to explain to the mom or he tried to explain to someone else, I'm struggling. Like that father said, that business is tough. And they say, no, the credit bureaus have already struck you. You're saying my hustles are not working. Let me go and apply for a job. You go to job interviews and then they do the verifications and the vetting. And one of the things they pick up is, but your credit profile is bad. You have a bad credit profile. We can't hire you. And you try to explain, no, it's because I couldn't maintain my kids, my hustles. And they're like, unfortunately, we cannot hire you. Now you can't get a job because of that bad, similar to a criminal record. This man who was arrested for sending 22,000 for 3 kids instead of 60 is going to get a criminal record. If he wants to apply for a job, maybe if he wants to apply for certain tenders and contracts, he can't get them because he's got a criminal record, which means he can't access money, which means his child cannot benefit. Now, this is not me saying that men or parents, moms, should just not provide for their kids. I'm trying to explain the unintended consequences of some of these laws. There are laws of crime in this country. If you commit a crime, if you steal, if you hijack, if you mug someone, etc., you go to jail. What are the unintended consequences? The unintended consequences are black men historically in this country were kept out of the mainstream economy because of colonialism, because of apartheid. With 1994, BEE and all these affirmative action, employment equity, they've tried, of course, to try and rectify the imbalances of the past. Unfortunately, many black men, I'm speaking about black men now, have been kept out still of the mainstream economy because they didn't do well at school. They're not academically good. They couldn't get into tertiary. They can't get decent jobs. There's no jobs even for basic things, being a packer of groceries, being a cashier, sweeping the streets, being a police. There are no jobs. I mean, this year, if not last year, there were doctors, medical doctors marching that they couldn't get jobs. So there are men that, I didn't do well at school. I'm not a star athlete. I'm not into music. I'm just a normal guy. I just want to work. They can't get jobs. And these guys get desperate because of this systematic exclusion where the mainstream economy does not include these men. Yes, today they can get the 370 Rand SRD grant, but that's as far as it goes. Now, when those men become desperate, not just for themselves, but for their children, they turn to crime. They sell weed, they sell hard drugs like cocaine and heroin, etc. They hijack, they mug, they steal so that they can feed themselves, house themselves, clothe themselves, but also so that they can provide for their children. And when they get caught, they get put in jail, they get a criminal record, and then no one wants to hire them at all then thereafter. This is not to say crime is right. This is to explain the unintended consequences of some of our laws, because you are punishing criminals without figuring out, why are you stealing? I'm stealing because I'm poor. A mother goes into a shop. If you've ever been in shops today, you'll realize that the formula, or Nan, Abolactogen, and them have got, those musica things where it beeps if you take it out, because mothers get so desperate that they steal formula for their babies. If you steal formula as a mother and it beeps, you get arrested, you get a criminal record. It's going to be difficult for you to get a job in the future. Why were you stealing? My breast milk is not coming out. My child was hungry. I wanted formula to feed my child. I was not stealing formula to run a racket where we now put formula in Inyawupe, or I was stealing formula. I was stealing clothes at Pep because I can't afford these clothes for my child. It's a crime. It's wrong. You should be punished. But then we need to look at the socioeconomic circumstances that led to that crime. Because similarly, by the way, the ANC, the PAC, the IFP, and many other political parties were banned and deemed terrorists by the law. Mandela didn't go to Robben Island because it was cute. He was a criminal. He broke the law, himself and many others. But that law had unintended consequences because it was saying black people in this country are second-class citizens. They cannot do these things. Things like the Dompas, the Robert Sobukwe ended up burning. You are saying that you are excluding us and we're struggling and we want to get involved and because we're now breaking the law just to become human, you are punishing us. And a similar thing happens with crime. And a similar thing could happen with this, where you're saying if a father, mostly, but it could be a mother or anyone else, pays late, he was meant to send 6,000 Rand, he sent 4,000 this month. It picks up, it flags, it sends to the credit bureau, he gets a low credit score and he struggles to access credit in future for other things that he may need for his child. By the time I try to buy a house 3 years later, by the time I try to buy a car 2 years later, no one wants to approve me because they were in my credit history, my credit profile, there are patches where I'd send lower maintenance, I'd miss a certain month, and it's showing up and it messes us up. So it's very dangerous. And because I know the socioeconomic issues we have in this country, I know it's going to punish men the most, and I know it's going to disadvantage children the most. Because the fact that your father's got a bad credit profile is going to have an impact on you. The fact that your mom has a criminal why? Why are men not providing? Why are mothers not providing? People don't have jobs. Our economy is not doing well. We keep buying things that are imported from other nations, sending our money overseas. Our government is corrupt in many ways. Big business is corrupt and greedy in many ways. We have high income inequality. We have got no sovereignty. Some of the jobs that the men and women are meant to be employed in to provide for their children and their families are being given to illegal immigrants. A mother wants to provide for her child, but there's a Zimbabwean waitress who does not have documents or who got them fraudulently working at a restaurant. A guy wants to provide for his kids, but he can't because the person driving the Uber is an illegal immigrant. So now we perpetuate this vicious cycle, and the people punishing these same parents are the people hiring these people. Some of your politicians are hiring illegal immigrants, and they turn a blind eye to that because it serves them. There's puzzle shops. We don't have puzzle shops owned by South Africans, or the majority of them. And that father that wants to provide for his child cannot because the Pakistani has got this puzzle shop. And we do this thing and it destroys us even further to a point where the black man in particular is blacklisted in terms of his credit. He's got a criminal record because he got desperate. He went to crime to try and feed himself and his family. And he's been blacklisted by society, and he's become this vicious monster who is angry. He ends up wanting to numb the pain through alcohol and drugs. He ends up harming people. He gets an illegal firearm. He hates foreigners. We call him xenophobic, and he's not a pan-Africanist. And we judge all these things, and most of them are systematic. But Pen, what is the solution? Before we find a solution, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve a situation where children's needs are covered. Most of children's needs will not be covered by ordinary citizens because they don't have the jobs and the money. So we need to figure out, how do we provide? Free schooling, great solution. We can debate it. But if the father's not providing, the mom's not providing, there are schools that are free. Free housing. If the father's not affording shelter, the mom is like, yeah, but he's not paying our rent. Mom, you can get an RDP house. We can house you for free. So you and the child will be fine. Clothing. How do we resolve that? And other things. Food. How do we make sure that food is so cheap and affordable that even if mom and dad are not providing, the children get to eat? Now, if it so happens that dad, mom are not providing, yes, take them to the maintenance court. Say this person's got a responsibility to provide and they're not. Now, do you blacklist, or such a rocket science, do you issue what's called a garnishee order? A garnishee order is listed on the father or the mom's payslip, and it provides a stop order so that when their salary hits, just like tax, When the salary hits, that money goes immediately to where it's meant to go. Would you rather blacklist a father, deny him from credit, or would you rather force a stop order, which is a court order, to ensure that that money is sent straight to the child? Now the child, the father rather, hopefully, because the systems could dictate otherwise. Now the father who's got this garnishee order for maintenance, and hopefully we make sure that it's not listed at the credit bureau. Now this father is being forced to provide. He's not being blacklisted at the credit bureau. He's not being denied access to credit, and it's there. Any credit provider that wants to pull says, oh, we see that there's a garnishee order that pulls every month. So this extra 2,000, 5,000, 6,000, 60,000 for the other father. This money, we know that's not your affordability because it goes to your child. Problem solved. Instead of this with unintended consequences of punishing people. The other thing we need to consider is a maintenance order, number one, is voluntary, but it can be forced. But if you don't sign a maintenance order, then this doesn't apply to you. That means all the moms who don't take fathers to the maintenance court, all fathers that don't show up at the maintenance court where there's no court order, they get away scot-free. And the idiotic father who makes the mistake of showing up, signing, I will provide 8,000, and then struggles in some month, he gets punished for trying to do the right thing. Because most people, most deadbeats, are not trying to do the right thing. They're not on social media making YouTube videos speaking about being deadbeats. They just disappear. Another issue that needs to be raised is utatako. The idea that many fathers who are not maintaining because they are not the fathers of those children, or they did not want those children. Where women could abort, take the morning afters, the fathers didn't have that right. They didn't have that privilege, rather. So they're now forced to raise a child they didn't want. When a woman says, I do not want to be a mother, she aborts. When a man says, I do not want to be a father, what does he do? He gets dragged to court, he gets issued with a maintenance order, and now we have these unintended consequences that punish him in life even further. We need to speak about what leads to some of these things. One of the things is before you issue a maintenance order as a court, it must be mandatory and standard that a paternity test must be done. There was a case 2 weeks ago that came out of a father who'd been providing for his child for many years, who defaulted, was taken to court for not maintaining, and then it came out that there was no child. There was never a child. Have to do a paternity test as a standard. Before a magistrate issues a court order, dictates that the father must provide, there must be a paternity test done on, is this really the father of the child? You have got women that are getting maintenance, before the orders, maintenance from 2-3 different men who all believe that the child is theirs, but that's not the case, and no one is being punished. Now, part of maintenance, in which the children's courts and the Children's Act have separated, is maintenance and visitation/access. They did it because they said, look, some parents cannot provide, but they still need to see the child because the child still craves and needs the other parent. I understand the mentality behind it. But I also realize the danger in separating access, visitation with maintenance, because you've got a situation like mine where the father's maintaining, but he does not have access to the child, and the courts are failing the father in punishing the mom. The mom gets to go and get credit stuff. The mom is not given a criminal record. We've got very few cases of moms that have been arrested for parental alienation. But in most cases, the courts do nothing. The police don't arrest you, etc. So for me, part of the maintenance order, along with ensuring that a paternity test is done, is we also need to ensure that before we punish dad to say he must maintain, is dad seeing his children? If he does not want to see his children, has he stated on the record and signed an affidavit stating, I do not want to see these kids, but yes, I'll send money that is forced. But in a case where he's saying, no, I want to see my children, like I've said, when I said I want to be a deadbeat, I will maintain children that I see. But if you will not let me see my children, I will not send money. No, you'll get punished. You'll get blacklisted. Your assets will be taken. But what's happening to the mom? What's happening to the mom that is keeping the children away from their father? It is so much easier to maintain children you see. If anything, when children are with you, you're forced to feed them. You're forced to clothe them. You are forced to try to do best because they're with you. But if I'm not seeing my kids and all you ever want from me is money, I'm being exploited as an ATM and the courts are not giving me adequate protection. The mom is not being punished as harshly. If a mom is keeping the child away from the father, that is like defaulting on your maintenance. That is physical maintenance. The mom is not allowing the father to spend time with the child. That is probably arguably more important than money at times. Then that mom must also get a default somewhere that we've now flagged. Dad is registered. The father didn't get access to the child. We flagged it somewhere. It goes to the credit bureau, or we flagged it. Once the mom has done this 6 times, 10 times, it's automatic. The mom gets arrested. If dad can prove it was my weekend, mom didn't shop, these are the SMSs, these are the emails, and you keep a track record, it keeps tracking. And the moms get punished. To be like, I'm maintaining. I've got a good record. Mom is not giving me access. She's got a bad record, but she's not getting punished at the same level as me. Again, this applies to both genders, both mom and dad. Sometimes both of them, because there are many parents that dump kids with cool. But I'm just saying some of these laws really, really aggressively need to be relooked, because where you're supposedly acting in the best interest of the child, you're punishing mom, you're punishing dad, and we're not looking at those matters and fixing them, which is why I said when I started with DJ Sbu, we need to maybe move away from what's in the best interest of the child and look to what's in the best interest of the family unit as a whole. Yes, you can't force people to be married and live together. Unfortunately, relationships end, there's violence, etc., so they split. Because what's in the best interest of the family is for both of them to be together, living together with the children. That's best case. If that doesn't work, how do we still try to protect the whole family? So mom is not forced to interact with a man who used to beat her just because they have a child together. Where mom is not being forced to deal with a man who triggers her, who swears at her, who says all these things just in the interest of passing the child on. And it's hurting her, it's destroying her mental health. How do we heal mom and protect mom for the interests of the family unit as a whole? How do we protect the man who also, maybe the woman used to beat him, the woman used to call him names, the woman who cheats on him repeatedly, he gets triggered every time he has to engage this woman regarding the child. That's why I even gave that suggestion of where mom and dad cannot co-parent peacefully and in a healthy way, the child should be taken away and put in boarding school. To say, mom says, we're not dad, you're always swearing at her, what. Dad is saying, but this woman is a hoe, she's done this. Mom is saying, but he doesn't maintain. Dad is saying, no, but I do maintain, just not to her satisfaction. You guys are toxic. We have ascertained that you are toxic. And we feel that this toxicity will harm the child. So what we will do is we will take the child away from both of you. And we'll put this child in a healthier space, being a boarding school, where you guys both have equal access to visit the school at any time to see the child. And then during school holidays, you'll take turns to spend time with the child. But we don't want you interacting with each other because you are toxic and it is going to harm the child. You will interact with the school, a neutral space, for the benefit of the child, but more importantly, for the benefit of the family unit. These are the things we need to be doing and changing, because if we want to make society a better place, some of these laws that are coming up, some of these punishments that are coming up are causing more harm than good, and you start feeling like there's an agenda at play, especially for good fathers, especially for good mothers, especially for good grandparents, step parents that are really trying to do best for the children. But all of these laws are throttling them in so many ways that it's making it difficult for them to do the right thing. Wanted to share that with you guys today. I'm looking forward to reading some of your comments on this very, very important matter, and make sure that we lend our voice out there to the laws. And where the laws are failing us, we must create our own laws, whether we call them religious, whether we call them cultural, that we can then enact within our family units to make sure that our family unit is protected in many ways, even if the laws of the land are not. Penuel the Black Pen. I think in closing, I'd like to wish all my American supporters and friends good luck with the voting that's going to be happening today, where they are voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. If you haven't seen it as yet, I've dropped a video, 20-minute video on Podcast Party SA. I'm going to drop a link in the description, unpacking my thoughts on Trump versus Harris and the American elections and why they are important for ordinary South Africans and Africans at large. And then there's going to be an episode dropping soon between myself and Bobby Petkoff on Unapologetic, which is the Mitmak Masterclass YouTube channel. I'm going to drop a link on that below as well, at least to the Mitmak Masterclass channel, so that when the episode drops, you can check it out. Speaking about the importance of the American elections, debating who's better between Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, trying to get Bobby to say some good things about Kamala Harris. Joe Rogan sat with Donald Trump last week. I know he was meant to sit with Kamala Harris. It seems it didn't happen. Kamala Harris went to sit on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp. And a couple of hours ago, an episode dropped of the Joe Rogan Experience where he sat with a big backer of Donald Trump, Elon Musk. And many people are going to be watching that. When I started watching it, it had been 6 hours since it had been dropped, and it had over 3.5 million views. I know when the Americans wake up, besides voting, they're going to ramp up those numbers of that episode between Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. Have a great and blessed day. Let's keep engaging, let's keep pushing, and let's keep doing the best that we can for our children, all of our children. If it means taking a step away, if it means threatening the mom to not maintain because you feel it's what's best for your children in the long run, try. We'll judge you. You may get arrested, you may get punished, but I'll understand that you are suffering, you are crying, and you're hoping that someone can hear you out and say, I want to be a parent to my children. I want to provide for my children. I want to love and hold my children and invest in them and educate them. And where there are toxic parents, grandparents, step-parents on the other side, expose them. Don't keep quiet. Laws are created by stats and data. And the more men don't speak out and die inside, the more good women don't speak out and die inside, the more grandparents that are abused by their children when it comes to their grandchildren don't speak up and die inside, the more step parents or they themselves are being abused or screwed over, like a father in Cape Town, a stepfather in Cape Town was forced to carry on providing for his stepchildren, even though their biological father was maintaining them. As long as they don't speak out, you'll feel like these things don't exist. It's up to each one of us with our platforms, be it YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp. Speak up. Let us hear. You may be wrong, and we'll correct you, and we'll help you. But you may be right, and you'll find out that there's something not being picked up. The 70% of children are fatherless. That's not true. It's because the mothers don't put the names on the birth certificate, because they've been advised that if you want easy access to a child grant, easy ways to get the child into school, don't put the father's details so that you don't have to ask for his ID or for him to be there, so that they don't have to ask for his payslip and his bank statement. These things happen. But because men don't speak out, men don't say, but I sent her an e-wallet. I sent her a cash send, but that didn't pick up in the bank statements. She would do it from ShopRite. She would do it from Pep. Yes, but that didn't pick up in the data. So it looks as if you didn't maintain. No, I didn't send her money. I brought my children plastic bags of groceries. But that's not noted anywhere, sir. Yes, but she's saying I'm not maintaining, but I am. Yes, sir, but you bringing groceries doesn't pick up anywhere. So it doesn't show. You sending cash to the school with the child, it doesn't show that it's coming from you. Rather EFT and show that it's coming from my account. So the more people speak up, the more we can tweak and adjust and fix and fight for the rights of good fathers, good mothers, good guardians, good step-parents, so that we can make sure that we have a better society and we expose toxic people in our society, regardless of who they are, and especially toxic mothers who have been protected for too long just because they are women, just because they are mothers, because there are good mothers out there that defend them. And then there are so many bad fathers out there that create this propaganda where even when a good father speaks out, he gets branded as bad because, there's no way you can be a good father and be saying these things. It doesn't exist. So the more good people speak out and speak about their issues, the more we have data and stats to take when we speak to the various lawmakers to say, this is what's going on. Please, can you fix it? And if you can't fix it, we're going to vote and move you out the way. And we'll make sure that the right people come in and they can fix it. Pen you all the black pen. Cheers.